Hello, fellow truth seekers. This is Barbara Jean. I've had several dreams last night, and uh, I wanted to talk about dreams a bit because I was, well, my sisters and I were sitting around having a wonderful brunch yesterday, and we got onto the topic of dreams and how important they are. Um, Hold on just a second. I'm going to cue a verse. Hold on. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. Uh, I couldn't find the verse I was looking for. It was the verse I was looking for was the one that talks about how God speaks to man through visions and dreams. The different ways that God speaks to mankind, um, and one of the ways He speaks to men is through visions and dreams. And we know this when you look through the scriptures. There's actually many examples of dreams and visions being the way God speaks to people. And if you think about what a dream or a vision is, it's a picture, it's a parable, it's a night parable, if you will. Um, you can dream about, for instance, the conversation that we were having, we were uh, we were talking about the importance of dreams because they're actually they're the spirit speaking to your conscious mind, the subconscious things of your spirit, the things that are hidden or hard to understand, the mysteries of your spirit and God's spirit speaking to your conscious mind in pictures and imagery, because a dream is an image you're seeing in your head. A vision is something that you're seeing with your spiritual eyes inside your head in a picture. For instance, that's why Jesus spoke in parables, because a parable is a story. It's not just words. He's actually evoking pictures in your mind. For instance, you see he talks about the parable of the sower. You see a man who's got a bag of grain on his shoulder or in his hands, and he's tossing. You can see him tossing the seed onto the ground. And then he gives you another picture of the different kinds of ground the seed falls on: stony ground, good ground, weedy ground, um, hard ground, whatever it is that he gives you a picture. So he's giving you using words to create an image that you can see in your head. So that's a vision. Really, that's what a vision is. When someone gives you tells you a story, you're actually creating pictures as someone is giving you a story. Your mind is creating a vision of what someone is telling you, and that was what Jesus did over and over and over again. He was helping people to see things in their minds. Um, and a night vision or a dream is basically your spirit talking to your unconscious mind talking to your conscious mind, or it's God speaking to you. Also, it's also Satan talking to you, because if you have open doors and Satan has access to you in the night, which most of us have on many levels. I mean, I grew up with nightmares too. And that was false dreams, basically dreams of Satan coming into you and speaking to your subconscious mind and giving you pictures, images that either terrified you, confused you, um, gave you false ideas about what God is or what God wants you to do in your life. So therefore, you have to be protected from those false images. Okay, so just saying that that's why they're important. And the reason we got onto it was because my twin sister was talking about one of her friends who I know, who had this dream. Her friend doesn't really hold a great deal of stock in dreams and visions. She's kind of like, those are not important if I don't have them, and then if I do have them, I just, they're not important. But she had a dream recently that was stuck in her mind, and when my sister told me her dream, I said, that's an important dream. She needs to look into, to the meaning of it. It involved animals. So she was seeing animals. She was seeing herself in the dream, and she saw animals in this dream. And I said, this is an important dream. She needs to understand something about this dream. And I gave her what my interpretation of the dream was, which I'm not going to go into. Um, but I said, that this is God speaking to her to tell her something about herself. And dreams are personal things that they teach us about how we approach life, how we see God, how we see our fellow man, problems in our life that need to be addressed, or how we're approaching problems that need to be addressed in our life. Sometimes we run away in our dreams. Sometimes we face them. Sometimes we run an attack at them. Or sometimes we um, are confused when we wake up from a dream because it's we see Um, um, we see evil things that we don't want to deal with, and they're hidden in the dark, and we know that we have to open that door. So we see a door in our dream, and we know we have to open that door, but we're really scared to open the door. And so, these kind of things that the Lord's trying to say, you need to open a door, and you need to have courage to face that, whatever it is that you're not seeing in this in real life. There's something that you need to do to help you to move forward in your life. Sometimes God, and I was talking about how sometimes God puts a stop on our lives. He halts us in our tracks. He stops us right in our tracks when we want to go forward. We want to move forward in our lives. It's just like kind of what we're going through right now. The world's stopped in its tracks. We are stopped. We come to a halt. And it's usually because God knows that Satan has a plan to destroy us. And if God allowed us to move forward before we take care of something in our subconscious mind or something that's hidden, a hidden um, uh, enemy or any hidden danger, He stops us in our tracks in order to prepare us spiritually, mentally, emotionally, to build our faith so that we can take that next step forward so that that enemy who's waiting um, to attack us because we haven't taken care of some kind of spiritual issue, he's doing is he's fortifying us so that we're prepared to meet that enemy when we have to go through that door. You see what I'm saying? Hope you understand what I'm saying. Um, God has a plan for us. He always has a plan. He has a plan for the world. He has a plan. He's working his plan to defeat the enemy. It's like the world has come to this halt because the enemy has a plan. His plan was to destroy us, fill us with toxins and chemicals, um, shoot us up with vaccines, get us all microchipped, all kinds of crappy things that the world system has planned for God's people. So what did God do? He put a halt to it. He put a halt to it and stopped us in our tracks and stopped the enemy basically from doing the same. Although they've still got their little plan working out. God has stopped the enemy. But what he's also doing for the church is he's fortifying us with strength. He's also working it out so that we know how to confront the enemy. He's got a plan. Uh, the war, for instance, the war between the Israelites and the Philistines, and the Philistines had a plan to destroy the Israel. And so they sent out Goliath, this giant who stood in there and uh, roared at the Israelites, and the Israelites were all petrified in fear. The war stopped basically and halted at that moment. Why this giant roared at us, roared at Israel, tried to put fear into their hearts and stop them in our tracks. There was a spiritual blockage there. You see what I'm saying? Israel didn't have the strength or the faith to deal with this giant. The war came to basically a halt, was these two sides confronting each other. The Philistines were lording it over the Israelites with this giant that they had in this divide between them, and that they knew that they could put enough fear into the Israelites. That was the end of the war. Nobody was going to come against them as long as they had this giant roaring at them. And along comes this little shepherd boy, who God had planned all along to come along, who had the courage to take up 5 stones, run towards this giant, throw this rock, knock this giant off his feet, and cut his head off. You see, he had the vision, he had the courage, but God put a halt to make the Israelites realize that they didn't have the strength, the faith to do what they had to do. Now, God wasn't going to allow the Philistines to defeat Israel, but Israel didn't know that what God's plan was. So they had to wait on God. And that's what we're doing right now. We're in a waiting pattern. We're waiting for God to fortify us, and he's already given us a David. He's got a David, and they got a plan, but we have to have the faith to bring down the giants that have halted us in our progress to go forward. Now, what has this got to do with dreams? Dreams are often God's way of working out or showing us in our minds what's causing our spiritual haltage, what giant is in our way to keep us from progressing. And it usually has to do with something in our psyche, in our past, something in our ancestry, so there's some kind of breakage in our DNA. And what show us, dreams show us these things so that our in visions and dreams and pictures show us where we lack, what needs to be taken care of, what needs to be looked at, what needs to be addressed, so that we can take care of it. So spiritually, we can take care of it first of all in spirit, because whatever happens in the spirit manifests in the physical. If you can't face a giant in the spiritual, you're not going to be able to face a giant in the physical. Hope you understand what I'm saying. So this is what God is doing in our dreams and visions. He's helping us to face the giants that are standing in our path, that have halted our progress from moving forward, taking the next step forward. That giant that's putting there and it's causing us to be fearful and frightened. He gives us a solution. He always has a plan. He always has a solution, but he requires his people to go back into their spirit to find out why they're afraid of that giant. Why don't they trust the Lord like David to run towards that giant, throwing a little slingshot around and knocking that giant off his feet with a rock? What? What an amazing story. It's amazing. And that's what God is waiting for us to do. He's waiting for us to listen to what He has to say about each one of us. So, my dreams are important to me because they show me areas in my life where I've had victory, where I've had some defeats, where I need to take care of, what I need to, but what God has planned for me. It also shows us our future. If we overcome these particular giants in our lives or these hidden things in our lives, these subconscious things in our life, we have the victory. And this is where the Lord is leading us. And that's what He has for all of us. So pay attention to your dreams. If you're not one who pays attention to your dreams, ask the Lord about it. Say, Lord, no, I'm naysay, when a naysayer about dreams, I don't have dreams. Could you perhaps give me that open-mindedness so that I can start seeing more in the spirit? This here, your pineal gland here, is the center. Is the third eye. That's where God speaks to you. He speaks to you through this third eye, which is why Satan wants it so very badly to be damaged. With all these chemical vaccines and things and all these things that these people have done, what they've been doing is they've been pumping up full of lead and poisons in order to damage your third eye, your center for where actually God speaks to you in visions and dreams. It damages you so that, because what the Bible says, you're without my people are destroyed for a lack of vision. Let's see if I can find that verse. Hold on, just a second. Okay, I found it. Uh, Proverbs 29:18. Where there is no vision, the people perish. But he that keepeth the law, happy is he. Okay, so without vision, you perish without vision. You perish if this is closed off, this is crystallized through fluorides and vaccines, and your third eye is crystallized, which is your pineal gland. You can't see or hear from God, and you perish from the lack of vision. Daniel was a visionary. Paul was a visionary. He saw Christ. Peter was a visionary. John was a visionary. John was the revelator. He had this vision that God, and he wrote the book of Revelation, a magnificent, incredible vision. Peter saw the sheep being lowered down with these animals, and as a result, the Gentiles were brought into the salvation plan. Amazing. Um, Joseph, dreamer, understood dreams, could interpret dreams. Incredible. Over and over and over again. Look up the word vision or visions, dreams and visions. It's amazing what you'll find. Visions are absolutely important. And anybody who tells you that dreams and visions are not important, they're so wrong. I found that verse I was telling you about earlier that I wanted to bring up, and it's in the book of Job about how God speaks to people. Job 33, starting at verse 14. We'll just start there. For God speaketh once, yea, twice, yet man perceives it not. So men ignore the way God speaks to them. That's what it's saying. In a dream, in a vision of the night, when deep sleep falleth upon men, in slumbering upon the bed. Then he opens the ears of men and sealeth their instructions, that he may withdraw man from his purpose and hide pride from man. So basically, um, so God talks to man that way, and also, like I said, it's the subconscious mind speaking, or the spiritual mind speaking to the conscious mind. Okay, so if anybody tries to tell you that visions are not important, and dreams and visions are not important, they're so wrong, because obviously they haven't read the scriptures, because it's absolutely full of verses about dreams and visions and visionaries and prophets who could see things in the spirit, see things that God is speaking to them. There, of course, there's also nightmares. That's, like I said, when Satan's trying to destroy you. But without a vision, you can't see the solution to the spiritual problem. Whatever happens in the spiritual realm manifests in the physical. So God speaks to us spiritually first, in order for us to see that there's something that needs to be taken care of, so that we can move forward. Now, Job is a prime example. He talks about quite a few times in the book of Job about dreams and visions, and this is where comes from the book of Job, about how God speaks to us in dreams and visions. But he also talks about nightmares, which is what he had. Um, Job 4, I believe. Let me see if I can find it here quickly. Job 4. Uh, he's just gone into his tribulation period. Um, he's sitting there with scraping his sores. His friends have come to visit. Now he's starting to open up about how he sees the problem, and how God sees the problem, or how he thinks or perceives God sees the problem that he's in. So he's trying to work this out. Now it's interesting that Job had visions, and he says how he's had visions. He had nightmares, and obviously God was trying to speak to him, trying to tell him that there was a spiritual problem, a spiritual issue in his life that he hasn't yet dealt with, which is what the open door, basically, it was an open door in Job's life that was going to allow the enemy to come in, and Job ignored it. And this is what he said in Job 4. He says, um, oh, no, this is not Job. Excuse me, I'm wrong. This is Eliphaz, the Temanite, but he says something about God and how God speaks to us. He says, the words have uphold him that is fallen. This is Job's 4:4. And thou hast strengthened the feeble knees. Now it comes unto thee, but now it comes upon thee, but now it is come upon thee, and thou faintest. It touches thee, and thou art troubled. Is the is not this thy fear, thy confidence, thy hope, and the uprightness of thy ways? Remember, I pray thee, whoever perishes being innocent, or where are the righteous that cut off? Ever as I seen, they plow iniquity, and sow wickedness, reap the same. Oh, wait. Am I okay? I got a little too far back. Um, let's go to verse 11. The old lion perishes for lack of prey, and stout lion whelps are scattered abroad. Now a thing was secretly brought to me, and mine ear received a little thereof. In thoughts from the visions of the night, when deep sleep falleth upon men, fear came upon me, and trembling, which made all my bones to shake. Then a spirit passed before my face, and the hair of my flesh stood up. It stood up, but I could not discern the form thereof. The image was before my eyes. There was silence, and I heard the voice saying, Shall mortal man make more just than God? Shall a man be more pure than his maker? So obviously this man understood visions and dreams, and he also understood that God is often warns us in dreams, and reminds us to not be proudful over lorded over God, saying that God, basically it warns us to be humble before the Lord. It was just what he's basically saying here. If they remind us to be humble before our Lord, that God is a just God, and that he sends his dreams and visions to remind us to be humble before the Lord, which is what a nightmare is. It's being conscious that there is an enemy out there, and we need to be humble before the Lord in order to find the solutions over our enemies. Now, so Those people who say that dreams and visions don't communicate anything, that are not necessary or are useless, are wrong, because God speaks to us. And obviously, Job, what this book is about understanding. Well, it's about justice, really. It's about being humble before the Lord, to be paying attention to the way the Lord speaks to us, to uh, it's such a deep book, and I'm not going to go into it because that's not really where I want to go, and I can go off on a tangent here. But it's an amazing book to read if you really want to go into the subconscious mind, which is really what the book of Job is about. If these people delving, just like my conversation with my sisters yesterday, we were delving into the subconscious. We were going deep. We're going deep, deep. We're going deep, people. And that's what dreams and visions are about. They're going deep. You're going into a subconscious level. You're going into the spiritual realm, and God is speaking to you to show you something about yourself, the way you think about yourself, the way you think about your world, the way you think about the people around you, the way you handle problems, what needs to be looked at, what where you're doing really well, things that the enemy is going to, how the enemy is going to attack you because you haven't addressed this and this and this. So pay attention to your dreams. That's all I'm trying to say. Pay attention to your dreams. If you can't remember your dreams the next day, have a pen and paper beside you, and if you can't, you're too sleepy to write down the whole thing after you've had a dream, write down a few notes, like a couple of words, a few things that remind you. Oh yeah, I had a dream about a water pitcher. Write down water pitcher, and maybe one or two other details that help you to remind. Oh yeah, there was something in my dream. Oh, there was a bear in my dream, or there was I could see this a waterfall, or I could see this. So just write down a couple things that help you if you don't want you're too sleepy to write down a whole dream. Now, me personally, I never write anything down. Anybody who's been with me for a while, I never write anything down. It's just the way it is. So anyway, I had a few dreams last night. I'm back to my live, love, live, laugh, love cup. A little chip there, but I don't care. Cup of coffee. It's already gone warm. Anyway, I had a few dreams, and they were actually very, really interesting dreams. And they brought to mind a few things. Again, I saw some pictures in my head. That's what a dream is. And it showed me something about how, um, I guess I address things, or perhaps the church, because I'm not just, a lot of the dreams are from me personally, but they're also for the church as far as I'm concerned, because the Lord has shown me that he gave me several years ago, 10 years ago now, the spirit of the bride. He gave me the spirit of the bride, and so I know that a lot of the dreams I have has to do with the spiritual battle that the bride of Christ is in. And so, although personally I may not have had personal experience in some of these areas that I'm dreaming about, I know that as a child of God and as the bride of Christ, the church has these issues that have to be addressed. So the Lord has given me the spiritual gift to see the issues of his church, to see the spiritual issues that his bride is going through. And so that's why I give you my dreams, because I know that the Lord has given me this gift. And that's too hard to go on, too long to go into all the confirmations that the Lord has shown me over the years, that this is indeed my calling. Okay, this was his calling for me all along, to address the spiritual issues, the battles that we are in as the bride of Christ, and how we have dealt with it, and how we're dealing with it, and how we're going to have victory over it. Okay, so that's what dreams are for. It shows how how we've dealt with it, or still in dealing with it, needs to be addressed, how we had victory over it, or and how we're going to basically have victory over this. I just said what I said. I don't have to repeat it. So, so interesting dreams. Interesting dreams. I had several dreams, and I'm only going to tell you 3 or 4 of them that happened last night. One of the images I had was very, very brief and very short. I saw a group of graduating students, from college. Could have been a high school. In my mind, it was a college, and they were all together, young men and women, were all standing in a group like they were having a group picture taken. and they were wearing their black robes, and they all had big smiles on their face. But instead of mortar boards on their head, they were wearing crowns. Some were some were big crown, like the imperial commercial crown. Dun, da, da, da. Those people who are old enough to remember that. Imperial margin. It used to be this crown with a red velvet thing underneath it. Anyway, and some were more simple, but they were all different. But they all had crowns on their head, and they were some that had taken them off and they were waving them around like, "Hey, I graduated, woohoo!" And so that was one of the pictures I had was people wearing crowns, and they were graduating and they were waving their crown. Okay, that was one of the visions I had last night. So it's simple enough to figure out, not too hard to interpret, particularly since we're going through this period of the coronavirus, and how I told you that we were not going to lose our crown, that no man was going to steal it from us. We had our crowns, and we were graduating. Okay, so that's really cool. Easy enough to figure out. Then I had another dream about I'm going to tell you two other dreams that I had. Uh, maybe two. Was there another one that I wanted to bring up? I'm just trying to think. I had a one about, I just briefly mentioned it. It was a very strange dream about women in bondage. They were trying to put us in bondage. We were these group of people, not just women, but there was men in this group too. But it's first about 5 or 6 of us, and we were on a journey, and we had come into a place where we needed some help, and we knew we needed water, and we came into a situation where we thought we were safe, and they offered us food. It would look like it was the Middle Eastern, like uh, some kind of Middle Eastern situation what we were in, and so we said we need help, and they offered us water and food, and we were sitting down, and we didn't realize at that moment that they were actually drugging us with the food. They had put some kind of sleeping uh, solution on the food that we were eating, and we fell asleep. And then they were taken into captivity. Only they wanted in order to sell us in the slave market. And I woke up in this dream. I didn't go fully into sleep, and I realized what was happening. And I didn't. Somehow I managed to get away from these people who had this evil intention, and I was negotiating with somebody else about what was happening, and I was concerned about the people who I was with, and I wanted to get them saved. I wanted to bring them out of captivity. Like they weren't able to capture me, although they tried. But I was not just concerned about myself, because now that I knew I was safe and that these people couldn't take advantage of me, I was concerned about those people who had been taken captive and were now being taken to the slave market, and I was trying to negotiate a way to get them free from these captors. That was one of the dreams. It was there was more to it, but that's what I saw. And I had another strange vision that I don't really understand very much, but I was trying to go to a woman's conference. It didn't really make sense because the directions were confusing. I was confused in the dream, to tell you the truth. I was confused in the dream because I was trying to go to some kind of Christian women's conference here in British Columbia in a place called Kamloops, the city called Kamloops in British Columbia, and that's where the conference was. But for some reason, there was something going on in Washington State that I had to be taken care of. What that means, I had no idea. So that again, something confusing about that. Um, something subconscious. The Lord will show me what that means. But obviously, there's some unfinished business where that's concerned. Now, there was these other two dreams that I really want to talk about because I thought they were fascinating. One included, I'm going to bring up my friend Grace, who represents in my dream the Grace Church. And there was another dream about this two little girls that I thought was absolutely fascinating and interesting. And I knew that there was a spiritual implication in that it had to do with the persecuted church, abused children. Um, and I'm going to find this Bible verse. Hold on. Should I tell you? No, I'm going to tell you the dream first. Okay. So in this dream, I'm with a group of people, and there was a little girl in this dream. a little girl. She was cute as a button, dark hair. She was surrounded by people who loved her, mother, father, relatives, and she was saying cute, funny little things. And we were all laughing and we were enjoying her company. She was just adorable and we were enjoying her company. Now, the funny thing was that she was wearing this little outfit that had little short pants, like pull up pants, but they're not pull up pants, but like little bloomers. And she had this little dress over top of it. And it was covered in a design that had pizza slices on it. Yes, pizza slices of pizza. And there was something else, but I can't recall what the image was, and I've been trying to remember. But it was a cute little outfit. And she was saying funny little things, and we were laughing. And she says, the parents said, well, we're going to take you shopping. And she said, okay, great, that's wonderful. I want to get a dress. I want to have a new dress, as long as it has pizzas on it. And we all laughed about it, thought how cute it was. And then the dream changed. Okay, so it was innocent, it was sweet, it was fun. She was surrounded by people who loved her. It was innocent fun. Then the dream changed, and I was in a situation where there was another little girl, and she had short blondish hair, and seemed like she was by herself. She was wandering around by herself, and I, she caught my attention because she didn't have anybody surrounding her. She didn't have parents looking after her, and she was holding what looked like a toy about that tall barn silo, and it was kind of a grayish color, and it looked like a toy barn silo. She was holding in her hands, and there was a man about 10 feet away from her, kind of leading her down. First we were kind of on a busiest street. There were people on the street, but she was by herself, and there was a man about 10 feet away from her who was kind of subtly leading her down a quiet street. Okay, but I was behind her, not too far away, about 3 or 4 feet away from her, just watching what was going on as she was being subtly led down this quiet street by this man in front of her, about 10 feet away from her. And as I was watching her, she was saying things, same thing, kind of things that this other little girl was saying, but because this little girl was by herself, she she was it was not cute. It wasn't funny. It was actually suggestive. And I don't think she understood what she was saying and that it sounded suggestive and that she was in danger of giving an impression that she was a target. In fact, she was a target and she didn't even know she was a target. So she was being led down the street by this man 10 feet away from her. And I was behind her listening to her, very concerned about what I was hearing. This man went into a side alley, a dark alley beside this quiet street, and she followed him into this side alley, and I followed her. And again, when we got to this inside the alley, she said something that was very suggestive. I can't remember what it was at this moment that she said. Excuse me, I got a poopy nose there. I don't know what I can't remember, but I knew what she said was suggestive, and it disturbed me. I was very disturbed. And I said to her, "Do you realize what you just said?" And she said, "No, I don't understand." Because I spoke to her. And I said, "Do you realize what you just said?" She says, "No." And I said, "Do you see that man over there? He wants to harm you. He wants to have sex with you." And this little girl was like, "What? What? I didn't know. What?" And so I took her away from this man, out of this dark alley, up the street to back to this busy street area where there were more people. And I said, "We need to find you a safe spot. We need to find you a safe place, because you're going to be hurt if we got to find you a safe place." That's the word I use, safe place. I said, "Show me where your safe place is," because I knew what happened was that it was after school. She had no one looking after her. And I said, "Where's your parents?" She said she didn't have any. And then I said, "Who looks after her?" She says, "A grandmother looks after her, but she's working, and so she has to wait after school for her grandparents to show up, or her grandmother to show up." So I said, "Okay, well, show me your safe place at school." So she showed me this little room, and there was other children in there, but these little kids looked like they were in cages, like little separated cages, like a bird coop or something. And I said, "I don't blame you for not wanting to be in here, let's find you another safe place. So I took her out from this other place that she said was her safe place, and I took her to what looked like a school gymnasium. And there were lots of people playing games in this gymnasium. It was very busy, lots of people around. I said, this seems like a better safe place for you. And there off to the side of this gymnasium, there looked like a little a little carved out, a little spot that was pushed back from the gymnasium. And there was a loft above this a cove. There was a little uh, uh, alcove. There was some kind of a loft, and the loft had a ladder that went up the side of this little uh, carved out area. And I said, "This looks like a good spot." And I could see up top of the spot, this loft area, that there was what looked like a little manger, like a small, you know, manger from a Christmas scene, was sitting on top of this little loft area. And I said, "That looks like a good safe spot for you." So we climbed up the ladder, and across the floor of this loft, they didn't have a regular floor. It had bamboo poles. The poles were about, I guess, that thick. And these bamboo poles were the floor to this loft. And so when you climbed up the ladder, there was a few feet, and then over to the one side was this little manger with some blankets in it. And we went over to this little manger area, and I said, this is a nice place. This is a nice safe place for you to be. This is a good safe spot for you. And I said, if anybody tries to come up here and harm you, you make a lot of noise because there's lots of people around. You can scream, you can make a fuss. Don't let anybody come up here and harm you. And I said, you can bring a little friend up here so you're not alone. That would be a good thing for you to do, not to bring a little friend so you're not by yourself up here. And I said then, and so it was really I was trying to teach her how to take care of herself while she's waiting for her grandmother to come get her. So I was trying to teach her how to be safe from these creeps. Um, and as I was doing that, this man decides to climb up the ladder. He saw us go up there, and he looked like he was disgusting looking. He was absolutely disgusting looking. He was old, ugly face, pockmarked face, disgusting, and he had a lecherous look on his face. That is the word, lecherous look on his face. He was absolutely disgusting, and he popped his head over was hanging onto the ladder, and he popped his head over, where we were, the floor of the loft. And he said, "Oh, so this is your safe spot." Ooh, gross, gross, gross. And it made me so angry. I went over to that ladder and I literally growled at him, like this, literally growled at him, and he like this, and then he climbed down the ladder and took off. And I said to this little girl, I said, "That's what you need to do if anyone ever tries to come up here." Okay. And so basically, I was trying to teach her how to protect herself. And that was the end of the dream. Now, what came to mind, I thought, when I woke up and I didn't understand, I thought, that's a strange dream. What was that about? And then I started thinking about it. And I started thinking, you know what? This is the contrast between those children who have been protected. The things they say are cute and funny and adorable. Pizza's a fun thing. I mean, we all love pizza. I don't know anybody who doesn't love pizza. Pizza's fun and it's funny. And you go to a pizza place with your family and you have a slice of pizza and it has an innocent connotation. Now, I don't know anybody now who can hear the word pizza and not get ugly things, ugly visions in their mind from what was innocent and fun and an enjoyable family experience has now turned into something ugly and dark. But with this little girl who was protected and safe, it was still fun. And we were laughing and we were enjoying her company, and she was safe. She was safe. And we knew it. And this other little girl who had no idea. And this the symbol the I thought about what was the silo about? Well, it was obviously a phallic symbol. She was a target. She was immature. She didn't know that she was, first of all, she was unprotected. She didn't have the safety and the wall around her of her family to be innocent and understand what she was, or even understand what she was saying that was made her a target for these child molesters, she didn't know that she was an easy target for these people because she didn't have a wall around of protection around her. And I had to educate her. And I was looking for a safe spot for her. I was teaching her how to guard herself against these lecherous people who want to harm her. And what came to my mind, the verse that came to my mind, and I'm going to find it here. Let me just put you on pause for a second. Because this is what came to my mind, this verse here. And it shows us that, to me, what it was saying to me was that the church, the bride, there are still there are children who are protected, who are loved, and we don't have to worry about them. But there are others who are not so protected, and that we do have to watch out for because they haven't got the sense to look after themselves, or the understanding, or the maturity to understand that they are getting themselves into trouble. And this is the verse that came to mind, which was Song of Solomon, verse 8. Now, this is after the um, rapture of the bride, and she's the rapture of the bride, and she's talking to her bridegroom. Let me just start at verse 8 because this is the verse 7 of Song of Solomon. This is the final chapter of this book. It's a beautiful book about the bride and the bridegroom. Many waters cannot quench love, neither can floods drown it. If a man would give all the substance of his house for love, it would utterly be condemned. Basically, he would. Love is so precious to the Lord, and nothing can drown this perfect love between the bride and bridegroom. Now, this comes to this final advice. The last thing they talk about is this interesting thing that happens between the bride and bridegroom. They have this interesting conversation. We have a little sister, and she hath no breasts. What shall we do for our sister in the day when she shall be spoken for? So these immature children, this little girl who they're talking about this young girl. She's not yet a girl. She's not yet a woman. She's a child. She's immature. She hasn't developed. And so what shall we do for our sister? What shall we do for this immature child? And this is what she said. If she be a wall, we will build upon her a palace of silver. And if she be a door, we shall enclose her with boards of cedar. I am a wall. So now she's talking about herself. She's going back to what she is. I am a wall, and my breasts like towers. Then was I in his eyes as one that found favor. So basically, she's talking about how the personality of the bride is that she's a wall. What is this conversation about? This conversation is about those children, or the ones that are protected. She's the first child in my dream. She was protected. She had a wall around her. She could be herself. She could be free to be herself because she knew she was protected. And this is what she says: if she be a wall, we will build upon her a palace of silver. Silver, okay? She's going to be honored. She'll be honored, and she'll be a palace. She'll be a city of Jerusalem, perhaps. A silver city. She will be glorified. She'll be magnified because she knew how to keep the enemy at bay. She had the mature spirit, and she also had the protection to know how to ward off um, the evil one, to keep her to keep her from being harmed. She had that protection around her. She also had the maturity to understand the difference between a predator and a friend. Okay, basically. And then you have the one who is a door. And if she be a door, we will enclose her with boards of cedar. So there's the difference. This one little girl, or if she's a door, if she doesn't know how to keep that door closed, if she's just an open door to any wolf, any predator, because she doesn't know the difference. She's too immature in her mind to understand that it is not safe. You're not going to be taken care of if you are an open door. She doesn't get the same honor as the wall. She's enclosed with boards of cedar. Okay, So basically, in this dream, it was interesting. I was taking this little girl and I put her up on a loft and I put her in a little cedar hutch, a little manger scene, a little manger. I put her in a manger because first of all, she was still a child. She was a baby in her spirit. And she didn't know the difference between a friend and a predator. She was an open door and she had symbols and signs all over her that says, I'm an easy prey. I had to teach her how to be a wall. So I was putting her up on a wall to try to protect her. And when the enemy tried to come up, I said, this is what you got to do. Ah! Don't make a fuss. Don't let that happen to her. So it was an interesting dream. Very, 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 very interesting dream. Also, another thing that came to my mind with this dream was, of course, the persecuted church. Revelation chapter 2. And you had the church of Ephesus, who is a wall in many respects. They are there's very little wrong with this church except for the fact that they've forgotten how to love. But then you have the next church, was the church of Smyrna. And they are the persecuted church. They are immature in that they haven't yet learned how to defeat the enemy. They hadn't yet learned through maturity and the mature mind how to keep the enemy at bay. Okay? And so that these people are, this is my little symbol, this is my little figurine for the persecuted church. She's wearing a yellow outfit, raincoat. She's got a real rain umbrella. The baby's actually holding the umbrella. She's got a baby bottle in her pocket there. Isn't that the cutest little thing you ever saw? She represents the persecuted church. Isn't that interesting? And unto the angel of the church of Smyrna write, these things saith the first and the last, which was dead and is alive. I know thy works in tribulation and poverty, but thou art rich. I know the blasphemy of them that say they are Jews and are not, but are of the synagogue of Satan. Fear not none of these things which thou shalt suffer. Behold, the devil has cast some of you into prison, that ye may be tried, and you have tribulation 10 days. Be thou faithful unto death, and I will give thee a crown of life. He that hath an ear, let him hear what the Spirit saith unto the churches. He that overcometh shall not be hurt by the second death. So there are people who will be persecuted because they haven't yet learned how to defeat the enemy. They haven't yet learned the skills of keeping those wolves at bay. They haven't got the maturity of mind and spirit to be able to defeat the enemy. So they're under this persecution. Okay, so that's what came to my mind. Interestingly, now this video is getting long, so I'm going to tell you my second dream. You can make it as you will, but I think it was an absolutely fascinating dream. And the Lord was showing me through this dream how the church needs to be looking out for those who haven't got that maturity. There's still fun, innocent things in this world, which is good. And those people who are protected, we don't have to worry about them. But there are those who are going to be easy targets. And we have, as a church, to teach those young girls and those young people, not just girls who are victims here now, but those young people who haven't got the understanding of how to keep um, the enemy at bay. And it's our responsibility. And it's interesting in the Song of Solomon, that was the last thing he basically addressed with the bride. What are we going to do? What are we going to do about this young girl? What are we going to do about our little sister who, we don't know how she's going to, what kind of person she's going to be when she gets older. What are we going to do? And so, well, we'll assess the situation. Is she going to be a wall or is she going to be a door? And then we'll take care of the situation as it comes. But it was interesting that I especially loved the part where that ugly faced man came up the ladder and I growled at him. I thought that was rather interesting. So it shows me about myself. That's how you deal with that situation. So spiritually, the Lord's showing me that the church is starting to understand we need to protect these innocents. We need to protect them because they don't know better. I hope that makes it clear. Um, then the next dream, interestingly enough, involves my other figuring, my little Grace figuring. Now, those people don't know about my little figurines. The Lord, in this very strange set of circumstances, led me to buy 7 figurines that actually had a set of 12 of, but I ended up with 7, not realizing at the time that they actually matched the 7 churches of Asia Minor. So this is my little church of Pergamus. I mean, church of Smyrna. Church of Smyrna. The persecuted church. And this little figurine represents the church of the Grace Church, the Church of Sardis, which is also in the book of Revelation. And the Church of Sardis is the Grace Church. She's got bare feet. She's not ready for work. She's actually having a break. She's having a little holiday. She's having a holiday by the beach in her little striped dress. The baby's holding a starfish, 5-pointed star. And she's got a little polka dot headband on her head. See, isn't that cute? And she's got blonde hair, which is very interesting because my friend Grace had very, very blonde hair. Anyway, this dream involved my friend Grace. Now I'm going to read the first. I want to read the Church of Sardis and the Grace Church. And under the angel of the Church of Sardis write, these things saith he that hath the 7 spirits of God and the 7 stars. Isn't that interesting? Because my little figurine is the baby's holding a star. I never actually thought about that. The baby is actually holding a little 5-pointed star. The Lord is so amazing. I didn't even notice that detail. It's the funniest thing how you doesn't come to your mind at the time. The 7 spirits of God and the 7 stars. And I know thy works, that thou hast a name, that thou livest and art dead. Be watchful and strengthen the things which remain, that are ready to die. For I have not found thy works perfect before God. Remember therefore how thou hast received and heard. Hold fast and repent. If therefore thou shalt not watch, I will come unto thee as a thief, and thou shalt not know what hour I will come unto thee. Thou hast a few names, even in Sardis, which have not defiled their garments, and shall walk with me in white, for they are worthy. He that overcometh, the same shall be clothed in white raiment, and I will not blot out his name in the book of life, but I will confess his name before my Father and before his angels. He that hath an ear, let him hear what the Spirit saith unto the churches. Okay, so now this last dream I had, this is the one I had just before I woke up. And my friend from years ago, I haven't spoken to her in years. In fact, we had a falling out, which involved my sister. In real life, it wasn't a dream. In real life, we had a falling out with Grace. It wasn't really me. It was my sister, who represents in my dreams the Church of Pergamus. Interestingly enough, um, in real life, there was a falling out, and so my friend, we just stopped talking to each other, which was a shame because although I tried to contact her a few times after that, there was been no contact, which has always been hurtful to me because she was a dear friend. Really, seriously, she was a dear friend, and I really enjoyed her company. Um, anyway, um, the problem with the Grace Church um, is that the Grace Church just wants to play. It doesn't really want to work. It's actually its position or its purpose is not to work. Interestingly enough, the need for relaxation and rest is absolutely vital to the human psyche. Okay, if you think about it, grace, we need to understand that there are times to work, times you need to work, but there's also times you need to rest. God knew this, and that's why when He created the 7-day week, He gave us the 6th day, or the Sabbath day, or the 7th day, excuse me, the 7th day, which was the day, a time of rest, time when we don't rest, when we don't work, when we put aside everything and we just spend times with our family. We enjoyed the beach, you know. And this is what my little Grace figurine. She's at the beach, or she's at the lake. She's got bare feet. She's not on work mode at all. It's about time of resting. And so in this dream was a very strange dream. So it's strange and interesting, and it was good. It was actually a good dream. Um, oh, I was just thinking whether I should read. I'll read some verses about grace after uh, I tell you the dream. So in this dream, my friend was. I was in the kitchen with my friend, with Grace, and she was working on a project in the kitchen. She was putting together a kitchen island, which is interesting. An island. Islands represent uh, this being surrounded by water, the beach. relaxation. But she was working on her island in this kitchen. And at first she was putting in these little styrofoam pieces into the side, like she was decorating the side of this island, the kitchen island, and she was putting first in these blocks of styrofoam on the side. And I thought that was kind of a strange choice for her, excuse me, to put in these side panels in this island, excuse me. I thought, that's kind of a strange choice. Styrofoam, that's weird. I don't understand, personally, I don't understand what it meant. And I don't understand, maybe I'll understand later, but right now that's what I saw. She was putting these decorative styrofoam pieces onto the side of this island. And I wasn't really happy with that. Okay, I wasn't really keen on what that project was. So anyway, she and I started having this conversation. And I was talking to her about how, and it was a very interesting conversation as what I can remember, but I was talking to her about how we need to be reconciled. We need to work on being reconciled because I really need you as my friend. I valued her as my friend. And I said, I value you as my friend. And we need to work this out because this is not good that we are not friends anymore. It does not satisfy my soul that we are not friends. That basically was, there were other things that were said or how I said it, but that was basically the gist of the conversation. I wasn't satisfied in my spirit about how our relationship was working out. She looked a little like, I'm not so sure. And and then she started, I think she started realizing as I was speaking to her, you're right, we need to be reconciled. So then she hands me a bowl and to help her decorate the side of this island. It's just coming to me. It's just coming to me. Oh, it's so funny. Oh my gosh. Sorry. It is so funny. Oh my goodness, it's just coming to me. Oh my goodness. Styrofoam. It's artificial. It's not good. It's not something, it's not something, it's an artificial substance and it's unsatisfactory. I wasn't happy with it. It was basically, I wasn't happy with our relationship and it was unsatisfactory to me the way the things that this was developing. Okay. So she hands me this bowl and this full of Rice Krispie squares. And they were peanut butter Rice Krispie squares, which I love. So she hands it to me. And so then she says, now this is what you got to do. So all those styrofoam pieces were removed. And I was building up this side panel of this island, kitchen island, with peanut butter Rice Krispie squares. And she was telling me how to put them in. And so, oh my gosh, it's so funny. So, anyway, we were building this side panel to this island and peanut butter Rice Krispie squares. And I just started eating them. I said, you know what, this is pretty good. It's a very tasty. Oh my gosh, how funny. And that was basically the end of the dream. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, that's too funny. Oh, the Lord is funny. Oh my gosh. It just hit me. I didn't understand the implications of this dream. How funny is that? Anyway, yeah. So I'm gonna find some Bible verses. Hold on just a second. Okay. You're gonna giggle when I tell you what came to me when I heard this. When I had this. Romans 6:1. What shall we say then? Shall we continue in sin that grace may abound? God forbid. How shall we that are dead to sin live any longer therein? Know ye not that as many of us were baptized into Jesus Christ were baptized into his death? Therefore we are buried with him in baptism into death, that like as Christ was raised up from the dead by the glory of the Father, even so we should walk in newness of life. For if we been planted together in the likeness of his death, we shall be in the likeness of his resurrection. Knowing this, that our old man is crucified with him, that the body of sin may be destroyed, that henceforth we should not serve sin, but he that is dead is freed from sin. Okay, So the argument and the disagreement between the church, the Church of Philadelphia and the Grace Church, is that we all know that none of us are saved by works, that we are saved by grace. We are saved by grace because, in other words, none of us can work our way to heaven. There is no working our way to heaven. And the Grace Church understands this. But they've got a problem. And this is the disagreement between the Grace Church and the rest of the body of Christ. Is that there's this greasy grace philosophy that has infiltrated the Grace Church that says you don't have to do anything. In other words, you can live the life just the way you did before you met Christ, then and after you met Christ. So there is no difference, and so they continue in sin. In fact, they even increase their sin because they feel somehow that grace abounds when they live in sin. And this is the argument, and Paul is putting that to rest. Here's the argument. Here's the conflict between the Grace Church, and which is what it says in the book of Revelation, that you're almost dead because um, you have increased in sin rather than put away your sin, put away your filthiness. You have not put on your garments of white because your garments are filthy, because you think that you're increasing in grace if you increase in sin. And that is, of course, ridiculous, which is what Paul addresses here. This is the argument. This is the conflict that the church has with the Grace Church, that God has with the Grace Church. And God addresses it right here. What shall we say then? Shall we continue in sin that grace may abound? God forbid. How shall we that are dead to sin live any longer therein? And so this church, this church of Sardis, has almost dead because, and this is what it says, they're almost dead. I know thy works, thou hast the name that thou art liveth, but art dead. Okay, so this sin has practically killed this church, the Grace Church, which should be a church of fun and relaxation and enjoyment and bring pleasure to the psyche that we need, that place where we know we don't have to work in order to earn salvation. You know that it should bring rest to our minds. It should bring rest to our spirits. It should bring that peace that says, okay, I'm working for the Lord because I love Him and I'm going to work for Him, but I'm not working for Him in order to be saved. That grace is actually part of our psyche that is important to understand. Okay, now, because not, let me just find that in the scriptures. Hold on just a second. Okay, Ephesians 2:5. Even when we were dead in sins, yet quickened together with Christ, by grace you are saved. Ephesians 2:8. For by grace you are saved through faith. That is not of yourselves, it is the gift of God. Now, it's interesting here. A lot of people who are saying, we're saved by grace, we're saved by grace. But there's also a little condition here. For by grace you are saved through faith. Now, faith is works. We have gone through that before. Now, a lot of people leave that out. You're saved by grace. You're saved for by grace you are saved through faith. Faith is a works. Faith is just like Father Abraham is the father of faith. Faith, faith is him believing something that God would do something, and in order because he believed God was going to do something, he did something. In other words, he made a sacrifice, or he left his home. So basically, Abraham showed through his works, which is what it says in James, that by my works I will show you my faith. You cannot show faith without works. So works and faith go together, which is the church of Thyatira, which is also part of our psyche, which we need. We need to understand the importance of works, because works demonstrate our faith. You're not saved by your works, but your faith demonstrates, or your works demonstrate your faith. And so it says here, for by grace you are saved through faith. So you can't really divorce the two. You can't say I'm saved by grace and grace alone. No, you're saved by grace through faith, which is what it says. For by grace you're saved through faith. In other words, there has to be some sort of work that has to be demonstrating that you believe that God is going to save you. In other words, be baptized. Repent. Um, uh, sacrifice something. There's something you need to do to demonstrate that you actually believe God. Now, the Grace Church says there's nothing you have to do. You don't have to demonstrate your faith. In fact, if you demonstrate your faith, you're not being saved by grace. And they'll tell you that. That's just why they tell you that you can go and live any way you want to and still be saved. And that is totally not scriptural. So don't let anybody fool you with that. That's nonsense. But then getting back to what I said before, hold on just a second, I'll put you on pause. So the argument between, and this is interesting because the dream, I had an argument with my friend Grace, and I said we need to reconcile. Now, the reconciliation isn't a compromise. It is saying we have to agree to that this separation between us. We have to understand that there is an argument and it has to be reconciled, and there will be reconciliation. Grace was working. She was putting together her island. She was working on her island. Okay, interesting. So Romans 6:1. What shall we say then? Shall we continue in sin that grace may abound? God forbid. How shall we that are dead to sin live any longer therein? So there's the answer to the argument. You cannot continue in sin if you're going to be saved by grace. You must demonstrate that you actually believe God is going to save you by grace by your demonstration of your works. Okay? Now, interestingly enough, 2 Corinthians says this. 2 Corinthians 9. Verse 7, every man according to his purpose in his heart, so let him give, not grudgingly or out of necessity, for God loveth a cheerful giver. And God is able to make all grace abound towards you, that you may always have all sufficiency in all things, may abound in every good work. So here's that grace may abound. And here's the answer to the argument. Again, another confirmation of the answer to the argument that grace may abound. First he says, shall we continue in sin that grace may abound? God forbid. Grace can't abound if you're in sin, but grace may abound when you are working. And this is what it says right here. So if anybody, you can bring both of these verses to their attention. If anyone tries to bring up greasy grace to you, you can bring up these two verses, and that will answer the question. Right? Romans 6, verse 1, 2, 3, and on, and 2 Corinthians 9. Every man according to, so this talking about giving. So sacrificing, there's a sacrifice involved. Every man according to his purpose in his heart. So let him give, not grudgingly or of necessity, for God loveth a cheerful giver. And God is able to make all grace abound. All grace abound towards you, that you always having all sufficiency in all things may abound in every good work. As it is written, he hath dispersed abroad, he hath given to the poor, his righteousness remaineth forever. And isn't that funny? In my dream, Grace was working on her island. She was working on her island, her place of serenity, her place of peace, and not working, but she was working. She's working on her island, and she hands me a bowl of Rice Krispie treats, made peanut butter Rice Krispie treats, which she knew I loved. And I was enjoying the grace that was abounding towards me. Isn't that the funniest dream? I was enjoying the abounding of grace. Oh, oh my goodness, the Lord is so funny. Oh my goodness, he's funny. You gotta love it. Now, getting back to what I'm saying, pay attention to your dreams. So the Lord is showing me in my dreams, he's reconciling some things that need to be dealt with in the spirit, in myself personally, perhaps. I know for a fact, but also towards the church. The church is he's showing me through my dreams because he's giving me the spirit of the bride. Now, for you personally, you may be given dreams about the church, or you may be given dreams about the world that you're living in, or people that you're around. But he also specifically is showing you things that are about you personally. But for me, because I've had this prophetic ministry and I know that Lord gave me this spirit and he gave it to me, and it was through this dramatic series of events, complete confirmation. So I can tell you without a doubt that the Lord has given me this particular calling. It is a calling. It's a prophetic calling. And so that's why when I have these dreams, I don't just apply them to myself. I apply them to what's going on in the church. And he's showing me that this reconciliation, that this disagreement between the Grace Church and the rest of the body of Christ is coming to an end. This disagreement, this conflict, because now there's coming to an understanding. The Grace Church is coming to some understanding. And also the rest of the church is understanding that we do need times of rest and relaxation, and that we do need grace to abound to us. We do need an abounding of grace. And it comes through our faith. It comes through this reconciliation of between works and relaxation. Just read it again. Every man according to his purpose in his heart, so let him give, not grudgingly or of necessity, for God loves a cheerful giver. And so giving, not just money, but giving your time, giving of your energy, giving is a works. Okay, so it's not just taking and not giving anything back. Giving works is about giving, and not just money, but time, energy, information, thoughts, freedom. You know, that basically I'm giving to you right now. This is me, even though I'm not doing some, kind of crazy. I'm not giving you money. I'm not running around. I'm giving to you what the Lord has given to me. I'm giving to you so that grace may abound to you. But it's a works. I'm in works right now by giving to you. But that's in order for grace to abound to you. Okay, so grace is about giving as well. And that's what he's saying. Um, and God is able to make all grace abound towards you, that you, always having all insufficiency in all things, may abound to every good work. So he gives us grace so that we can give back. Grace isn't just about getting. Grace is about getting so that you can give. Throw it back at you. Here, God has given me this. I can give it back to you, and I can give more and more and more and more, because grace is coming to me so I can give. And great giving is a works. Okay, so he's trying to show us that there's a balance. You can't just have grace that's just give, get to me, give it to me. It's a selfish, immature, unsatisfactory, and it's also not biblical. Grace is about receiving in order to give, to have something to give back to the world. And we shouldn't be afraid to give, because God is able to abound grace towards us. Anyway, isn't that amazing? I just love this. I love the Lord so much. I love his word. I love the way he communicates. He is supernatural. Anyway, if you haven't given your life to Jesus Christ and you do want the gift of grace, then you do what Christ tells you to do. You be obedient to doing the works he tells you to do in order to receive the grace that he has for you. And those people who want to tell you that you don't have to do anything in order to be saved, you're absolutely wrong, because that's not what Christ said. Jesus said in Matthew 28, he said, now these are his apostles who were saved by grace. He told them to go to work. He said, Jesus said unto them, all power is given to me in heaven and earth. Go ye therefore and teach. Oh, it sounds like a work to me. Baptizing. Oh, that sounds like a work. In the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, teaching them, the works, to observe all things which I have commanded you, and lo, I'm with you always, even to the end of the age. That's Jesus' commandment to you and the disciples of the Lord. And also Mark 16, we again have the same thing, the same kind of commandment given to the Lord gives to this church. Mark 16:15, and he said unto them, go into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature. He that believeth and is baptized shall be saved, but he that believeth not shall be damned. Quite simple. There it is. It's not that hard to understand. Pretty simple. Acts 2:38, Peter, the premier apostle, giving the sermon of his lifetime that is recorded for all time. And he says about salvation, he says, and Peter said unto them, repent and be baptized, every one of you, in the name of Jesus Christ, for the remission of sin, and you shall receive the gift of the Holy Ghost. For the promise is unto you and to your children, to all that are far off, even as many as the Lord shall call. All right. And then, of course, I just read Romans 6, What shall I say then? Shall we continue in sin that grace may abound? God forbid. How shall we that are dead to sin live any longer therein? Know ye not that as many of us were baptized into Jesus Christ were baptized into his death? Therefore we are buried with him by baptism into death, that like as Christ was raised from the dead by the glory of the Father, even so we shall walk in newness of life. So pretty amazing dreams that the Lord has given to you. And so if you have not yet repented and been baptized, there is still opportunity. Obviously, we're getting pretty close to graduation day, according to my other dreams. So I would suggest that you think very, very quickly and clearly about what you want to do. Ask the Lord to open up that third eye, your pineal gland, so that you can have dreams and visions for yourself, and ask the Lord to speak to you in that manner if you are not aware of that. That's how God speaks to you. And if you're not seeing dreams and visions, if because the Bible says in the last days he will pour out his spirit. Hold on, let me just get that verse for you just a second. Okay, here we are. So this is again the coming of the Holy Spirit. Peter's premier sermon. He says, and it shall come to pass in the last day, when, this is Acts 2:17, excuse me, when it shall come to pass in the last day, saith God, I will pour out my spirit upon all flesh, and your sons and your daughters shall prophesy, and your young men shall see visions, and your old men shall dream dreams. And on my servants and on my handmaids will I pour out of in those days of my spirit, and they shall prophesy. I will show you wonders in the heaven above and signs in the earth below, blood, fire, and vapor of smoke. So, those people who don't believe in dreams and visions or that they're important, they need to rethink because that is not biblical, and especially in these days. So, if you're not one to have dreams and visions, ask the Lord to give you a vision, because without a dream, you perish. That's what the scriptures say. Without a dream, you perish. So, you need to ask the Lord to help open up that third eye of yours and start seeing those parables in your head that are called dreams and visions, because they will help you to overcome the spiritual battle or the spiritual blockages that are in your life that are preventing you from moving forward. Or it also gives you hope because it shows you areas where you've had victory, just like my dreams have just showed us. And through my giving to you right now, it showed you that God is showing me that we are overcoming. We have overcome the enemy on so many levels, and we continue to overcome. Okay, so this is amazing. What an amazing time we live in. God bless, and I'll talk to you later.